Maybe we can start the event. I think more people will be dropping in along the way.
Okay, Curve, over to you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So thank you so much for taking the time and joining us on a Saturday morning for most of us, I believe. So before this session started, I just wanted to take some time to kind of introduce a bit about Thailand Web3. So it was launched about 1 month ago, actually. So we are just about celebrating our 1 month anniversary by both Elena and I. And also we have Michelle here who has helped us to pull together this event. So both Elena and I, we saw like increasing interest in the world of Web3 as a possible job and career for many people. And so we actually created this community to actually like share knowledge and also build networks for all these aspiring Web3 talents. So so thank you so much to Dirk as well as Rishi for joining us as speakers, and also Nicolas for agreeing to be a moderator for this event. And yeah, I'll pass the time over to Nicolas then.
Thanks so much, Curve. Thanks so much. A very good morning or evening to everyone, depending on wherever you are in the world. And thanks for joining our first Web3 vertical learning session today. And I think, as Curve mentioned, we are honored to have with us Dirk Lueth, who's the co-founder and co-CEO of Upland, and Rishi, who is the head of Web3 innovation at Enjinstarter, to share more about what it takes to work in the Web3 space, focusing on the Metaverse. So before we begin, we would first like to thank them for their time, and also to the Thailand Web3 team for making this session possible. So now, without further ado, let's turn the limelight towards our two distinguished panelists. Maybe for starters, could you give us a brief background of how you eventually landed in the Metaverse space? Maybe Rishi can go first.
Sure. First of all, thank you to everyone for having us, and thank you for all the people turning up. You know, it is Saturday morning here in Singapore, and all the people overseas as well. You know, glad you guys can tune in. First and foremost, I guess I've always been a digital native. You know, back from the day of, you know, Super Nintendo, gaming has always been a big part of my life. I've always loved new technology. When the iPhone came out, I was super involved in, you know, looking at and studying all the different apps in the app stores and everything like that. And this has been a constant trend throughout my whole life. I've spent half my working career trying to solve other people's problems in the advertising world as a strategist, you know, constantly on a daily basis, new challenges coming up. And the other half of my working life in what I could say, trying to solve, you know, my own product's problem as a startup founder, and obviously as a chief growth officer for other startups as well. There are two things that really kind of brought me to the space. One was timing. During the pandemic, there was a lot of time to really think about, you know, what are the new technologies out there, really kind of dive deeper into the solutions and spend a lot of time reading about blockchain and the possible use cases for it. The second was actually relationships, right? And this is going to be, you know, a constant thing that is going to be super important, not just in Web 2, but also Web 3, where, you know, you build these really great relationships over the years with like-minded people. And as long as you have an open mind and, you know, you keep your doors open as well, you never know where the opportunity can kind of come through. And, you know, that was how this all started. It was a simple coffee session with you know, an old friend that I've known for 10 years. He started Enjinstarter, my CEO, Prakash. And we started talking about things, and, you know, the next thing I knew is I was extremely, I would say, enamored with the whole space and the direction it was heading. And it took a weekend of pretty much reading nonstop to understand, is this something that I'm really going to spend the next, you know, 5-10 years of my life sinking my teeth into, you know, and that's, you know, the rest is history. And that's how I kind of got into this whole space, you know, really trying to, once again, trying to solve other people's problems, obviously as an advisor and consultant in this space. And that's how I got started.
Thanks so much for sharing. How about you, Dirk?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, good evening. So say hi from right now from the US West Coast near San Francisco. So thank you for having me on this panel. I'm excited to share, you know, what I've learned so in the past. So how do I get into this mess? I was going to say, no, how do I get into Metaverse and such, right? Is actually quite funny. So I'm actually a builder. I'm an entrepreneur. So as you can hear my accent, I'm originally from Germany, but I live here now in Silicon Valley for 14 years. And having started 2 companies back in Germany, then then coming over here, and so I got very early involved with Bitcoin, and you know, and later on a little bit then also with Ethereum. So in 2010 already, my first Bitcoin, because I was really fascinated by the whole idea of that there's a decentralized currency. And then there was this famous night in, I think it was early 2018 or so. I sat together with my currently 2 co-founders, Manny Honigstein and with Idan Zuckerman. And since I was, let's say, more the blockchain person, and I've tried out a lot of things between 2010 and let's say 2018, was, you know, some stuff too early, some stuff, you know, not advanced enough in terms of technology. However, we had that night and we were actually playing Monopoly, and I'm sure most of you will know that game. It's, you know, where you buy streets and so on. And you know, we sat together and said, isn't that a cool idea if we take Monopoly, combine it with blockchain, and then, and that's the thing is, because we also watched Stranger Things during that time, you know, we take, this is a Netflix series, I don't know who's seen it, but there's something happening in a parallel world with monsters and so on, but we just took the idea of a parallel world. So we took those 3 ingredients together, we said, okay, Monopoly, inspiration, blockchain, and the parallel world, and you know, we created some kind of a game out of it. And that's when we started Upland in 2018. And then actually at that time already, so Upland's URL is upland.me for Metaverse in 2018. So no one was really talking about the Metaverse at that time, right? Where we said, hey, we want to build that parallel world. And I always said also at the beginning, you know, we said, oh, no, we should not use that in our marketing lingo, because no one understands what Metaverses. Also, we were trying to avoid the word NFT at the beginning, because we always had the mission to go after mass market, where we use, you know, words what everyone's aware of. But today, you have to use Metaverse, you have to use Web3, you have to use NFTs, right, in order to attract, you know, talent.
Got it. Sounds like a very interesting journey. And I also heard that just recently you just published a book that you co-authored as well.
Oh yeah. Here's my book. So we just launched it like 2 weeks ago. It's actually, I'm proud, it's #1 right now on Amazon, and it's called Navigating the Metaverse. I wrote that together with Kathy Hackel. She's quite a well-known person here in the US, but also globally, right? And with Tommaso Di Bartolo from Berkeley. We sat together actually last year because we were working with lots of brands and lots of people also asking us, can you explain us the Metaverse? And what we're still doing is that, oh, you know, maybe we should write 2 or 3 chapters to make it easy. But then, you know, we started, you know, generating ideas and became more and more and more. And then Wiley, it's published with Wiley, came around and said, hey, we want to do a book out of it. So I took my holidays in December writing the book. And, you know, we had also a great editor, John Akontaki, who helped us, you know, finishing the book then. And yeah, then basically, I think we wrote the last words in January, but then it takes usually a while, you know, to print and everything, and it's in May, right? I already write the version 2.0, I think, because this space is moving so fast. You know, there's always new stuff. You know, what's in the book, I said, I should have written it differently, but it's just the nature of things.
Got it. Really interesting stuff you're doing there. Okay, anyways, maybe we can just, you know, deep dive into specifically the Metaverse. I think the question on the top of everybody's head would be, first and foremost, how would you actually define the Metaverse? And building on that question, how would you then frame your Metaverse strategy?
Okay, well, I mean, this could go on for hours, but we'll try and condense it. Obviously, you can see Dirk's written a book about it, so he can start reading from the book. I think to put it in very simple terms, it's a new way for us to really kind of interact with, you know, 2D objects, now 3D. Instead of browsing, interacting with web content, we can kind of flip through pages and tabs, you know, we need to move away from that, right? We need to kind of look at the whole experience layer of kind of interacting with things on a whole different immersive virtual layer. And if you take, for example, online gaming, instead of, you know, playing games on a 2D web page, the web page is transformed into a 3D space where users can walk around, interact with other users, play the games as in-game avatars. You know, users can interact with the web content virtually as well and immerse themselves in the virtual space. With the integration of virtual reality headsets as well, users can even have an immersive experience visually and physically. I think for potential applications, it's expected to be, you know, emerging dimensions across a lot of different facets: social media, work, entertainment, gaming, education, all in kind of one area. And that's where we'll be kind of, mirroring our real world, everything that we do, for example, right? Like this right now would, some of us might even just have avatars, digital avatars kind of talking through in very real lifelike kind of, graphics. And I think, both the technologies of Web3 and the Metaverse support each other perfectly, right? Although the Metaverse is a digital space, Web3 favors a decentralized web, and it can really serve as a basis for connecting the Metaverse. On the other hand, the creator economy in the Metaverse can also support Web3 by developing a whole new financial world with the implementation of decentralized solutions. This is something that's going to be built by people, for the people. Anyone will be able to lay down their own Metaverse bricks in this whole, new world. And while they're pretty cool Metaverse games already, like Fortnite, GTA, Counter-Strike, they're now at a massive disadvantage simply because they're not open source, they're not open networks, and they're not Web3. And personally, I see the Metaverse as 4 stages, right? The first stage is limited immersion, and this is where we're currently at with modern day VR technology, which allows us to kind of, dip our toes a little bit in what we can actually experience, right? But how many people actually have a VR headset? Very few. And a lot of companies can't even build in VR because, you just will not bring all the Web 2 adoption over to Web 3. And so, the next stage would be ultimately when these kinds of technologies mature a bit and we get to, something like a mass market, right? We all have haptic suits. I know, another Metaverse player as well, Somnium Space, they're giving away haptic suits with their founders pass. And this is going to become more common as, adoption kind of moves ahead. And then it starts to get really scary. You're going to get into an advanced VR stage where we're going to be able to start tasting, in the Metaverse, we're going to be able to start using our brain signals through, neurotech in the space. And the interface will just be a middleman in that sense. There's a lot that we can do ourselves. And this is, I believe they're already kind of moving ahead with this kind of technology. It's already being tested where you can actually taste stuff in the Metaverse, which is quite interesting. Some people would find it scary, but I find it quite exciting. And ultimately, you're talking about, the Metaverse and the real world becoming totally indistinguishable, right? We can now use advanced neurotechnology. We can map the mind. We can upload one's brain. I think there's a lot of, theories out there about what Starlink could be used for, what Elon Musk is working on and stuff like that. And, if you start thinking about it this way, the whole infrastructure of everything we have changes, and it's still a long way away, right? We need to be able to hold information at such a large amount of volume. That, we really need IPFSS to be at a lot more of a mature stage to store that data, to transfer that data and everything like that. I mean, the human brain holds, 2.5 petabytes of information, and we're just not there yet. We're struggling with even, 2 to 3 gigabytes of unreal information and data for, a single person to download. So that's kind of the way I look at the Metaverse. And, the framework, I guess, what we start always looking at what really motivates the audience, right? And we look at 6 keys: accessibility, community, sustainability, gaming, creators, and ownerships. And these keys are always addressed in our plans and our strategic frameworks. And we leverage some more than the others. For example, gaming might not necessarily mean to build a game, but it might mean to gamify the experience for the audience, right? How old your audience is, are they ready for Web3, or are they still 100% in Web2? All of these things really play a huge part in trying to build out your framework. The next thing we do is we actually look at the various utility components of a project, such as interface, experience, and economic. If you're thinking about, say, Southeast Asia and India, your interface might be more receptive on a mobile device, right? And that obviously has its limitations as well with what you could build in a Web3 kind of decentralized world. Income could also dictate the price of your NFTs and whether even NFTs are affordable at all. And these are some of the things that we need to look at when we start thinking about building Web3 projects, because 99% of the world is still Web2, right? And we definitely don't want to be, exclusive. We want to be inclusive and to try and bring a lot more people into it. So this is how we kind of look at our frameworks for all the various projects that we work on.
Got it. Sounds really interesting. Seems like we have quite a long way to go. How about you, Dirk? Dirk, what's your view on this?
Look, I mean, Rishi said now a lot of things which are absolutely true, right? So what can I add here at this point is, because I always get asked, what is the metaverse, right? I always say, okay, first of all, we try to define it, and what we always say is the metaverse is actually where you assume one or multiple identities, right, in a parallel world, yeah, where you do things and where you own things. So that's a little bit the approach what we're choosing. So when you think about Web 1.0, was basically we're replicating newspapers, and that was about, you had audiences, and it was basically one-to-many type of communication, right? Then you had Web 2.0, so all social media. You had followers. It's already both sides of communication, but it was still a little bit biased, right? So I mean, very often when you're a fan of let's say a rock group or some sports people, right, you could write them on Facebook, but the likelihood that they would answer would be quite low. And then you actually have Web 3.0, which you have now, and this is completely a paradigm shift, because the reason why is because Web 1.0 and 2.0, you were always able to do still things on the side, right? So, I mean, to take maybe staying with sports, right? You could read a newspaper on the web, while you're watching a sports game, right? You can still use social media while watching a sports game. Web 3.0 is about you do something and you own something. That means your attention goes completely towards, you immerse. That's what immersion is about, towards, the metaverse at that moment, right? And then that's where that's why it's also so disruptive to lots of energy. So I just recently, for instance, spoke at a very large sports conference, right? And sports thinks, it was a very large soccer conference, and they think, oh, we have lots of fans, and we're never going to be disrupted, right? We always going to have our fans, whatever club you have, Real Madrid, and and all that. But the truth is, and that's where disruption comes in from Web 3.0, is that the people, when they now do things in the web, they cannot do other things. They cannot watch the game at the same time, right? And that's actually why they have to embrace it. And speaking of sports brands, in order to be part of that Web3 organization, because Web3, very much like the normal web or internet, will not go away from us. It's going to stay here, and will stay here for good. Of course, with the advancement, and Rishi just said it, in technology, we will immerse more and more into it, right? We all know right now, I'm also very skeptical about this VR headsets. It's still too immersive, right? I mean, when you wear it for 2 hours, you get dizzy, and right, and it's too much time waster. But I'm much more bullish, for instance, of augmented reality, right? These things will come. However, I wouldn't be surprised that in 10 or 20 years, we have a small implant in our hand or wherever, right? And you become part of the metaverse, and you eventually blur the whole thing, blurs much more together.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what Dirk said, right? Spot on. And this whole element of participation as well in Web3 is now made a lot easier because of ownership. In the music space, we work with a lot of different kind of artists and entertainment companies, and we're seeing people starting to own stems, participate very early on with musicians in terms of their whole process. You're seeing some great things, right? Obviously, with Snoop Dogg leading the way with what he's doing, all the different kinds of experimentation, buying back Death Row Records and turning it into a Web3 company, right? I think it's really interesting that people can now also participate in various things. They can share, they can co-create, they can collaborate, and not really worry about the ownership and rights, because everything's recorded on chain. And so some of these things, just the use of the technology itself, moving away from just art and NFTs, right? There's a huge use case. But obviously, it takes a while to develop these plans, and because you're essentially building businesses that almost form like countries with their own currency and stuff like that. So it will take a while for adoption of all of these different kind of entities coming to light.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good point, right? When you think about adoption, right? Right now, when you look at OpenSea, I think there's 400,000 unique wallets. I mean, the crypto people who are doing Web3 and Metaverse now is so small at the moment. So it's really hard to get the mass market on it, right? And I think what the biggest problem is right now with Web3, maybe also, to talk about not everything's nice and so on, but I think one of the big problems of Web3 and Metaverse is, people always say, not your keys, you don't own it, right? And stuff like that. But if you think about the average person, actually, they don't want to actually have the responsibility to own keys. I mean, now people will probably jump my face, the hardcore crypto people say, yeah, of course they want. I'm not so sure about it, because if they lose it, right, they want to call someone or want to write an email, hey, can you restore my password, right? And that's what the majority of people want. The majority of people want to be on mobile devices, right? Today, most blockchain stuff is not. Upland, of course, is, but normally they are not, right? So there's still a lot of barriers, right, which we have to overcome in order to make it really mass market ready. Yeah, so we're not there yet.
Yeah, we're at a super early stage. This is such a nascent part. We're still getting new standards done on refunds with NFTs and stuff like that, where people can buy but also choose to get a refund back if they've changed their mind, right? These are things that are, I mean, if you look at the NFT market, it's a $40 billion market. 80% of the volume is controlled by 9% of wallets, right? And someone put it in the chat just now about how we kind of ensure this whole decentralized effort, and it will come, but it will take time, right? The faster we adopt and the faster we get Web2 people onto Web3, right, the better it will be for everyone. But we always have to think about that, the element of what makes Web3 great, and that is the decentralized aspect, the ownership aspect, right? Getting rid of all the middlemen that are out there that are basically just kind of taking a bit of a fee for connecting. Now people can just connect directly with the people that they want to buy, and that's how the relationship should be, right? You are the one who's creating value, and you should be rewarded for it.
Got it. Hearing from both of you, it really seems like there's really a lot of work to do within the space, as we're still quite in the nascent stages. So I think a question that probably will be also on the top of many people's minds is that, given that there's such a gap, right? Like, what are some of the roles available in Metaverse companies? And, what are some of the traits or characteristics that Metaverse companies actually look out for, when hiring potential candidates? I think that's something that, a lot of people will be interested to know about, coming from your perspective.
Dirk, do you want to take this one first? You've obviously been hiring much longer in the space probably than I have.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe just a quick background on that. So we're right now we're hiring 3 to 5 people a week at Upland, right? We have 120 people currently, but all around the world. So first of all, what is new is you don't care, because Upland was born during COVID times, right? And that means we're completely distributed. We all now used to work anywhere, right? This is also something, people have to be native to that. And so, it doesn't matter, right? As long as people have the skills, which, then they can sit in, in Singapore, Timbuktu, in wherever, right? That's all good, right? Which is great, actually, which is a huge opportunity for the first time ever, because, I've been working the tech space for so long. And, in like 5-10 years ago, you would still say, oh, we have to open up, let's say, a company and, have an office space in India, and then, or wherever you go, or, then you have to actually, as a company, you have a lot of things to organize, right? And then people who wanted to work for that company have to move maybe to Bangalore or wherever they want to be, right? And would have to do all that. That is, to my mind, pretty much gone with all the Web3 companies. I mean, I don't know them all, but my gut feeling is, I mean, I don't know, Rishi maybe can chime in, but I think it's really basically, it's completely distributed, which is really new. But this, of course, creates new types of skills and also cultures, right? So because you're very transactional now, right? I mean, probably most of you be working like that, and you still go to school, right? You had probably online school and so on, but it's it's the thing is, what is gone is this whole, let's say, water cooler discussions, right? You turn on the video, you talk, you turn off the video, right? And I think it's a little bit sad that you don't have this creative, and by accident, great ideas, right? I think that is something which is missing, and so that's something, when you're a company, you still have to say, okay, how can we come together, right? For instance, we as a company, we're coming together soon in Las Vegas, the US people at least, right? And then to be there again. So that's the first thing. The other thing is, when you start working a Web3 company, you have to approach it really an open mindset, because since it's so distributed, right? And we all come from different cultural backgrounds, right? I mean, when you now, let's say, when you're from Eastern Europe, right, and now you work with South Americans, we do that at Upland. So now we're building up a team in Brazil. We're also people in Eastern Europe, right? These are different cultures, right? And you know, people are sometimes very direct, the others, you know, they're indirect, and you have to come through. So you actually have to start when you you know, when you want to work in a Web3 company, you have to be open-minded to those cultural, you know, to other cultures, right? And have to be also have to have a lot of compassion, what I always say, right? When you you know, to understand, okay, maybe they have a different type of thinking. When they say no, they actually mean yes, the other way around, and whatever, right? So it's a learning curve, but it's super exciting at the same time, right? Because you can learn so quickly now, which you probably didn't have the chance, because in the old days, you know, you would just stay in Singapore, would just stay wherever you are, and basically maybe you would do maybe business trip somewhere, but you don't really dive that deep into other cultures. And I think that's super fascinating, to be honest.
Yeah, you know, there are a lot of different entry points that get into Web3. I think what people really need to do if they're joining an existing company is trying to understand what is that company's motives, or what is their agenda in Web3, right? Are they going to be doing something that's going to be decentralized, which is very hard for existing, you know, companies to do. But I think most importantly is what is the underlying technology that they're going to use, right? How are they going to get there? You know, there's a huge space around community building, you know, the creator economy, which are going to find, you know, newer specialized roles. People before who used to, you know, do basic Discord management 2 years ago are in huge demand now, right? Discord to me is really like an art rather than a science. It's you know, it takes a lot of work. Managing communities is now a 24-hour, you know, job split among multiple people. So there lots of different specialities that are popping up in Web3. And I think people just need to think about, you know, what is their role in this space. And yeah, and I think, you know, there'll be plenty of opportunities there. And I know we'll talk a little bit about what we're looking for, but, you know, I think the first step is just get involved, right? Just start learning about it, you know, attend talks like this, you know, connect with people. The Web3 community is super inclusive. You know, not a single person I know will not want to sit down and have a chat. If they have time, you know, they'll have a 15-minute chat or a 30-minute chat to help guide you and stuff like that. It's a very open community, which is fantastic.
God, it's really heartening to hear that, you know, what you say, that the Web3 community is really inclusive. And I think that kind of leads on to my next question as well, which is, you know, how can someone from, I think, the Web2 space, or, you know, a professional from a non-STEM or non-tech background be able to position themselves to be able to transition over to the Web3 space? Because I believe that not everyone, you know, has a tech background or coding background, but how can they also really take part and be part of this, you know, trend and disruption in the industry?
So I think in Web3 or blockchain, you know, the normal jobs, you know, will not completely go away when you work for a vertical. Let's say when you work in healthcare, when you work for a car manufacturer or something, right? They will not go away. They will just look differently, right? So you will still need the expertise to produce a real world car, hopefully, right? Or still need to produce medicine or something like that, right? So that is still there. However, I think, but the way you communicate and the way you create products, that will change, and that's what you have to learn, right? So when I say communication, Rishi just mentioned it, Discord is the largest one right now, but I see also a clear future where actually lots of communications will move into the Metaverse, that they move out of Discord. That's going to happen, I'm pretty sure. And so that's one way. So, but you have to learn how to communicate. You should, you know, join the Discord community, you know, and join maybe also Metaverse and understand what they're doing and talking to people and acting in a certain way together, right? Just the way they are, right? And so, and then the second point is the how can you bring in your expertise is because the Web3 is all about co-creation, and that is something which is new in this concept, to maybe give you concrete examples, is like in the old world, when you're a big brand, right? You say, okay, you're very protective of your brand. No one is allowed to use your brand, right? And when you, let's say, when you're marketing or so, right? You were, okay, hey, this website is using our logo. I have to send a cease and desist, right? To stop with it. What is now new and different is when you're a Web3 brand, you say, you know what, you can use, of course, you have to define it a little bit. You can use my logo, right? And maybe you want to create maybe a special version of the logo, right? Maybe the logo which sits on top of a mountain or whatever, right? You come up with a, you let the community actually do it. Maybe do a competition, right? Hey, use my logo in a funny way or a fun way, and we're the best ones we will promote. So actually, the community, besides that you interact with them, but they also become your biggest advocates. So everything really centers around the communities, right? When you want to do community commerce, that's another thing I think, which we'll also talk about that in the book quite extensively, is the way commerce is, right now you basically have over here in the US, Amazon, maybe some other sites, right, where you go. But in the future, you will use the community to maybe resell your products, right? Because everything is digital, right? And you have fans, and they're creating maybe a room or 3D house or whatever, where they maybe specialize in selling certain goods, maybe sneakers or what have you, right? So and you have to have the technology in order to enable the community to do that. And then actually they become your advocates and they become your sellers. And now you let them participate, even though they are just virtually just showing your sneakers, but all the logistics in the background you still do as the sneakers company. And the community member, he earns 1% of every sale or whatever the right revenue share is, and that is also quite new. And I think going forward in Web3, so the future of work is changed, because like our parents, at least mine, they started one job and basically there is never left that job, right? Maybe sometimes they changed job twice or so in their life, right? Our generation, even the younger generations, they have probably already 2 or 3 jobs or 5 jobs, but all in sequence. But the future will be that people will have multiple jobs. So they will take some of that in real world, some of the jobs, but then operate what I just mentioned, operate some businesses in the virtual world also, right? And maybe they make more money through that, because in Upland, for instance, because what we say, we are the entrepreneurial economy, and we already have people who just launched shops. We have over 50 shops now. The first people are already saying, I'm going to quit my daytime job and I'm just going to make money now in Upland. Yeah, and that is also somehow which is somehow the new reality, is that you do in parallel multiple things where you earn your income.
Yeah, exactly. You're getting all kinds of people moving into the Web3 world, right? Architects who previously you'd think have a very kind of monotonous job. They're starting to design buildings in the space. They're able to unleash their whole potential. They're a very rare breed now, right? People who buy all these lands, they need to build stuff, right? And so you're getting all these expertise in building, right? From a Web2 world or even a Web1 world coming into Web3. One of our clients, World X, that's a property group, right? Who has town planners and stuff like that, right? And they're figuring out, how do I build this whole new world in Web3 using all of the experience that they've had for over 50 years. So definitely you don't need a STEM background. I think you just need to understand the space and really spend time with it to really soak up all the different aspects of it. And there will be a way for anyone to enter it, whether you're an architect or a project manager or a developer. Obviously a lot easier in that sense, but there's a lot of room for people in Web3.
Got it. Wow, it really seems like there's a lot of opportunity out there for people in traditional industries and verticals to really switch and apply their skills into new verticals within the Web3 space. And I think on that question, we really just want to know from you guys, as a professional interested in entering the Web3 space or the Metaverse space, how do we choose which vertical to start with? Be it like the content layer, the infrastructure, like how do we identify what best suits our skills?
So I mean, I think we're still at a very early stage, right? I think passion is going to play a huge role in what you choose. It's definitely a very turbulent space. It's very volatile. You have very polarizing point of views. So, if you get in early, obviously, like anything where you get in early and you ride the wave up, you get the rewards, right? But you got to be obviously thick-skinned and, not to fear intimidation. I would tell people, figure out what is your true north, right? What is the area you want to excel in? And start just having discussions with people in that area already in Web3 to kind of, figure it out. And I would stick with it and just learn and deep dive into that whole space in that vertical to really kind of master it. And in a very short amount of time, you're going to be, way ahead of everyone else, and I'm talking very short amount of time. Oh, Dirk, you're on mute.
The old mute problem. Okay, so some practical advice I would give is when it's now a little bit hard because people are probably from different industry, different verticals, and so on. But you should basically do a 2-column page, right? You write, okay, my current today's skill, my Web 2.0, Web 1.0 skills, right? You write them down on the left side. And then, of course, what you have done some homework before, you purchased some land in the metaverse, you played around a little bit in the metaverse, you dived into the community. So once you understood that a little bit, then you mirror your skills in the old world and you say, okay, what does it mean translated in the real world? Yeah, and then you have a lot of, you write down 10 of those things and then 10 on the right things. And then you maybe come up with you create some kind of a profile of yourself as saying, hey, here I'm particularly strong. Maybe I'm a great communicator. Maybe I should start a marketing Web 3.0 agency. I don't know, right? Or I'm a good coder, or I'm a data analyst, right? Okay, maybe now I need, because there's public data from blockchains, there's APIs. Okay, what does it mean? Can I create a new site? So it's tons of things you have to do, but I would really try to transfer yourself into the Web3 with your skills via that list.
Got it. Thanks so much, Dirk, for your really helpful framework into deciding this, and also to Rishi for your really candid advice on which verticals to enter into. Yeah, I think I just want to take a step back, right? And I think ask a question regarding, like given the opportunities and there are many companies out there that offer such roles. I think one of the prominent things that we have in mind is, being the metaverse being really decentralized and being very, very democratized. But the main pushes of the metaverse are from our traditional FANG companies, such as like Meta, for example. So I think one of the questions asked by the audience was, don't you find ironic that, the people who have the most resources to actually build out the metaverse are also the ones who are centralized? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
So first of all, I mean, just to clarify, there's one internet, there's one universe, there's one metaverse, okay? Okay, now someone can call himself Meta. Maybe we should have called our company Inter or so, I don't know, something like that to have something. But anyways, I'm just joking here. But so the problem is there in the Web 2.0 thinking. I don't know their plans, right? Whatever they want to do. But the power of Web 3.0 is decentralization, right? And empowering the community. If you empower everyone, right, and to do something, you can actually accelerate, and then you can come when you centralize company with 10 billion, $100 billion, right? But if you empower everyone to contribute themselves onto a platform, personally, I'm very optimistic this will accelerate, will overtake those old centralized entities. Future will tell, but that's the way we think.
I would say, one very important word in all of this is interoperable. As people own their assets, they can choose where they want to go, right? I think the problem is we get gated into specific communities right now with all our data locked that we do not own, that we can't take out and just put somewhere else and use it, right, in different ways. And that's going to be one of the big game changers is sure, but as soon as, Meta decides that we can take our content and move it to another social media platform of our choosing, right? It's totally going to change the way things work, right? And then that's what we're seeing. We're starting to see that interoperable layer starting to come alive. And that will totally change the dynamics of what centralization is, because the power is completely in your hands to choose where you want to go. So sure enough, right, there will be, projects out there, they are going to do a massive, great job, right? And they're going to attract a lot of people. But I don't think the opportunity is there for you to move out if you want to, right? It's not like they're doing anything that to kind of keep you there and to gate you there. So I think this is another element to always think about in this space is how do you actually build that out in such an open kind of universe.
Got it. Thanks so much for clarifying our doubts on that. I think we want to be mindful of time, so maybe we'll wrap things up with one really important question, which is, if you could just give one piece of advice to our audience here on how they intend to enter into the Metaverse or Web3 space, what would it be from your perspective?
I would say start building your network, right? As soon as you start doing that, very quickly, the algorithms will start showing you all the things you want. That's what I would say.
Take some money. Obviously, money you can potentially also lose, right? And maybe spread it out over across multiple Web3 and metaverses, right? And just start, trying it out and playing around with it, experiment and dive into it. But I think you have to invest time and money into it. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to to really enjoy it.
Got it. I think, Rishi, I really relate to your piece of advice because, if I'm on LinkedIn and I try to search for, Web3 and Metaverse related stuff, the algorithm just knows and it will just, recommend me even more. So the more I find out, the more I learn as well. And I think for Dirk, I think I really get you as well, because it's one thing to really understand how it works and the other to really use the technologies, to really be immersed in it. I think it's a really different experience. You get to appreciate it more as well. So I think maybe given that we have a bit more time, we can probably open the floor up to the audience to see if there are any questions as well. I think there was one just now regarding the meta and the centralization one. I think there's also another question from the audience as well regarding, give me a second. Yeah, so there was an audience that was asking, there's this Peter Thiel's book called 0 to 1 about that disruptive solutions have to be 10 times better than the current ones. So do you think that the current metaverse or Web3 solutions really have to be 10 times better than the current ones in order to really change the world, or at least disrupt some emerging industries?
I personally don't think so. I think we're in such a new space that the experience that people are giving away, right, is just completely different from Web 2. It's not about performance, it's more about the experience and what actually you're adding to the whole Web 3 space. But in the Web 3 space, again, we're so early on. How do you know if it's going to be 10x, right? We haven't seen the huge influx in terms of population getting there, but there are already amazing examples of platforms and companies spearheading the industry. Just look at companies like Animoca Brands. Look at how Bored Ape Yacht Club went from basically just an NFT to where they are now, right? So there's a lot of room for growth. In terms of performance, still very early. I would say a large chunk of the projects out there, once they run out of funding, might not be sustainable at all, right? And this is an area that people really need to kind of focus on and see and just figure out what is it in Web3 they can build that is really going to be sustainable for their community.
Yeah, I think that, and I think basically the 0 to 1 is probably Web 2.0, to say a little bit outdated in terms of Web 3, because the mechanics are completely different. We have a paradigm shift. We're moving away from being app centric. What 0 to 1 is basically is you as a company, you create an app or a platform, and then you have to be 10 times better in order to disrupt. I think this is a completely different approach now. You have everyone's participating in it, and that makes it then you don't need this 10 times better anymore, right? So this is something which probably needs to be rewritten. I don't know if Peter Thiel does that, or maybe someone else.
Got it. I think we also have another question from the ground. I think this one is more specific to what are some of the trends or shifts in the Web3 or Metaverse space, which are not so obvious yet. So we have the obvious things like NFTs, we have the obvious things like virtual real estate, but what are some of the trends that are less obvious that could potentially also be equally disruptive?
I think, I mean, if we look at what happened at NFT LA, right, the first big shift was really about inclusion to different types of groups, right, that are out there, clubs, associations, things like that. We're moving away from art to much more utility-led frameworks, right? And obviously, this is the way that ultimately we would evolve into as projects mature and people mature in terms of understanding the space as well. So you're going to look at a whole range of different things that open up. You look at what Steve Aoki has done with his passport, right? The NFT, right? You get access to all his different events. You get on guest lists. You get free tickets, things like that, just from one NFT. We're also seeing NFT ticketing being done in new ways, where you have QR codes that are constantly updated onto an NFT. You go to an event, right? You scan it using Web2 technology. It goes away, another one will come on the next event and stuff like that. So I think, the utility element, moving away from just kind of art is one big trend that, I think is really going to shape what happens in at least the next year. And I can't say what's going to happen after that, because the space moves so fast. You're learning every week on how things change, that, we can only look maximum six months to a year ahead.
Got it. Yeah,
No, I mean, just to add that, I think personally very excited. I think next year we have the the AR glasses coming out from Apple and Amazon, right? And I think this will extend the Web3 or Metaverse layer to the real world. It's going to be super exciting to see that, and that's where a lot of investments will flow into.
Yeah, I mean, look, just have a look at what Eminem did at the recent Coachella. I think I won't talk too much about it, but just Google that, right? And that's a great insight into a huge trend.
Got it. I think just now, one of you mentioned the NFT LA and this type of conferences. I think a question from the audience also is that what do you think is the value of attending this type of huge conferences? Other than in terms of like knowledge that you get, the networks that you're able to develop. Like, how do you actually position yourself so to get the most out of these conferences if they have any value?
Yeah,
Dirk, maybe you want to go first on this one.
Did it correct? So what conferences bring what kind of value? Sorry, I didn't.
Yeah. So these Web3 and Metaverse related conferences, how to best get like the value out of that, through like building the networks or like getting as much experiences as possible.
Yeah, I think right now we have actually an inflation of Web3 events and whatever. It's just great. It's just one event after the other each week to 5. I remember like 2 years ago, there was one event every month or so at the most, but now it's exactly different. So I think you probably should, we should probably check for yourself. I think the trend will be more like what we said earlier, it's more vertical events, which covering certain industries, it's maybe Web3 for musicians, Web3, for the car industry or whatever, right? That's probably more interesting as the generic. I personally don't get anything out of the generic events anymore, right? Because maybe I'm too deep into it. I've heard most of the stuff, right? But I think what interests me is really those vertical approaches. Okay, what is the exact use case for this particular industry? And that's where I think also most of the innovation will happen in the future. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I think thanks so much to Dirk and Rishi for your valuable insights. I think you have shared with us things that we definitely wouldn't be able to find online. And I think that's definitely something that we could really apply going forward if we choose to position ourselves towards transitioning towards the Web3 or Metaverse space. I definitely believe that the participants have gained a better understanding of the space as well as how to position themselves. And with that being said, I think I'd like to hand the time back to Curve so that she can wrap things up, and then so that Dirk can actually go for his Friday drinks as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
and cycle back home.
Curve.
Yeah, so thank you so much everyone. Rishi, Dirk, and Nicolas for this session. It was a very valuable session, and I've learned a lot also. And personally, coming from the crypto space, I think the Metaverse, I feel it has a very critical role in like moving the crypto industry forward. Like it's the area I would say that really puts together like DeFi, GameFi, and NFT. So keep building. Looking forward to how this industry goes. Yeah. I think just before we end off, I wanted to also take a good photo. So if and like all of you out there could on your cameras and everything, that'd be really great. Okay. Oh, can everything? Okay, I'll count now. 3, 2. Okay, thank you so much. And I drop a link in the group chat about for post-event survey. So if you guys could help fill it out, that would be really great also.
Thank you, Curve.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rishi. Thanks, Dirk.
Thank
for your
you.
time
Thank
and
you.
insight.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.